So you have Davinci Resolve and you want to make an AMV and you want to kind of spice things up. So right now I have a scene from Chainsaw Man pulled in with a song that I'm planning to use. And with that combined, we just have this scene that we're going to try to use today. And that's pretty much it. That's the basics of it. So what I'm going to do is try to just pile on as many effects as I can think of and show you how I throw them together. I'll try to break this up into sections to make it easier to kind of go through this video and learn. And so the very first thing I'm going to do is figure out where I'm planning to mask everything and kind of go ahead and break that up. So right here, I'm going to mask out just her hand, and the moment her arm comes down, we're going to make a new mask. She's going to throw the hammer off to the side. The moment she's off screen, the hammer will just need to be masked out, and right before he comes onto the screen, we'll make a new mask. And then I'm going to have him pop forward. You could do this all in one. It just makes it easier to preemptively break this up. I'm going to right-click my footage, open in Fusion. So when I open this in Fusion, the first thing I'm going to see is two windows here. Now, you can click these little dots at the bottom and I can see the media in and the media out on one screen. That's what these dots represent. It's showing you which one is on which side. So if I use the hotkey Shift Space and type in Magic Mask, this is what's going to affect it. So I can say draw on the left one and it shows me the scene I'm working with and the outcome of what I'm doing, basically. For the interest of this, and because I don't necessarily need to see the first scene, I'm going to go click this box at the top and turn it into just one big screen for me to work with. And for the start of this, I'm just going to take the blood and do that first because it's easier to keep up with. And now I can't really tell where anything is, so I'm going to go over to settings, go to blend mode and reduce that so I can kind of see what I'm drawing on as I go. And there you go. You have the hand. You have the blood, and this isn't going to be great. This would be a great use for me to change the mode to better, but in the interest of time, I'm just going to keep it on faster for showing this. So we're going to have some issues here and there. There's going to be, you know, little inconsistencies and some errors, but we're just going to do the best we can with this. And I'll get back with you the moment I am done kind of touching up this mask. Okay, so I've got that masked out, and when you're done masking something, you want to go to the matte page. You want to go to the top right, go to matte, blur this just a bit, you know, stay under like 1. You know, if you were to go all the way over here, it really starts to blur it and you kind of lose definition. If I were to take the blend mode off, you know, you can really see the feathering of it. So we're just going to keep it around like 0.5. We're going to lower the threshold, which if I were to zoom in, you'll see that it kind of, you know, just gets it closer to the edge of the mask. And with that, we have a good enough mask. We're going to render that and we're good. So we now have the hand, and I'm just going to do that for each one. As now her arm is closer, I'm going to pull in another magic mask, draw in her arm, the hammer, and her hand. Doing the same thing, hammer should be fine. Did that section immediately. And now we want specifically the hammer and Dingy's hand. And from this point on, I think I just want Dingy in front of the bar. So I don't need to do anything extra here. We're just gonna bring all this back. Kinda just barely touch up his hair, which it's not gonna like. Magic Mask is not good with hair. I'll warn you now. The better mode is a little bit better with it, but you're gonna have to do a lot of tweaking frame by frame. So, in interest of time, we'll ignore that for now. There you go. You now have this all cut out. Okay, so I've got my mask created. I've got everything I'm gonna need, because my interest of this is to make black bars. So what I'm gonna do is add tracks. I'm just gonna add about 4 more for now. Move all these up, go to my effects, type in solid, and bring in a solid color. I'm gonna reduce this create a duplicate by holding Alt and left clicking it and just kind of dragging it down. I'm going to crop this using the crop on the right side to about 950 on the bottom and 950 on the top. And for the interest of keeping this together, we'll put the top one on top and the bottom one on the bottom. Now, still don't have anything, so we're going to take this original scene, create a duplicate, reset fusion composition, which will just reset it back to normal, and now we have all of this over the top, and you know, he appears over it and all of that. Okay, so I've created my mask, I've put the background back on, and I've added black bars. So now we have the scene, everything we want over the black bars. And I've noticed something doesn't look great, and it's the fact that she's behind the black bars. So I think right around here, I'm going to have her pop back in. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up. I'm going to move everything up so we can keep up with it. Create a duplicate, shorten it to where I need it, and then I'm going to open this in Fusion, clear it, and make a new magic mask. And at this point, we are going to cut out all of it. We're going to just get rid of the background. And Magic Mask loves to do this. See right there at the bottom, you can see the black bar kind of popping out in front of her. And you're going to tweak this and be like, it's got it, it knows. Nope, it doesn't. It really likes to do this, and I don't know why. It's specifically these little like half circles and ovals that it appears at the edges of your mask, which make black bars kind of a nightmare sometimes for this exact reason of just like, yep, one more frame. Yep, still messed up. Okay, now we're good, and that's the shirt of her collar, so we'll get that back. And honestly, you'll have to fight Magic Mask a lot with that for whatever reason. We're just going to do what we did with the rest. We're going to blur it. We're going to lower the threshold, maybe kind of just make it look a little bit better. And there you go. Now she pops in front of the bars, and he does, and we've got pretty decent looking black bar effect, right? So let's say I'm going to go ahead and preemptively do this as well, because I already know where I'm going to go with this. So new Magic Mask, I'm going to cut out. Technically, I don't need to recut out his hand or the hammer, but I'm going to do it anyway, just so it's kind of all in one. Same as last time, we have all that cut out. We're going to blur it. We're going to threshold. Now you'll see how I did this. For some reason, it popped in right there. That's because my reference frame is not the first frame. So if I go over here and click go to reference frame, I started on like the third frame. So just to make sure it doesn't do anything weird, because I opened and closed Fusion, I'm going to redraw on him. I'm going to render backwards this time, which is why it messed up, and then render forward. And I saw it took his chin again. Mask, just work with me, buddy. Okay. Now I'm going to put him behind the black bars like I wanted, because I do want him to kind of just like pop in. So the reason I've even bothered to do this, if I go down here and add a track, because right now, this is the black bar effect. Pretty simple. I specifically want him to kind of be behind it and then pop forward right as he slams over for that little bit of extra oomph. But let's say now that I've done all that, I want to change the background, right? I want to add some funky thing to the background. So now I go ahead, create one more mask here, because to replace the background, I'm going to have to make yet another mask, only this time it's going to be all of power. We're just going to have it keep everything in the middle, make sure we get rid of all the background, and render this out again. Okay, there we go. So now we can change the background. Now, that's kind of a lot, right? Now you could go in, you could change the composite mode to this to be a little less visually stimulating, or you can go through and create a blur. So you go to OpenFX, maybe add a Gaussian blur to that. So now the hammer and them are more highlighted, but you have a fully replaced background. There you go. Now you have a background replaced, you have black bars, and you could still kind of go in, change the composite mode for this, maybe color dodge or something to darken it, whatever you want to do. But now you'll be able to see the original background back there just a bit with the movement that you see. So really, this part's up to you. It's whatever you want to do utilizing all of these. So let's move to the next part of adding text. So we're going to clear out our selection, go to the text nodes, and you can use any of these pre-rendered text, particularly like jitter. However, with jitter, it's a write-on effect. So if I were to take this and let's turn the sound back up, I take this over here, it writes itself on, right? This pre-rendered effect slowly types itself onto the screen. So I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to open this in Fusion. This is the text, like the pre-rendered text. So you can make these yourself too, and create your own little effects and text and all of that, and save them for future projects. But I'm going to right click this, and I'm going to expand the group. You don't want to ungroup it. That will just completely break the pre-rendered text. So you're going to expand it, and within this, you can click on the text node, which on the right will show you the write-on effect. And I'm just going to go over here, take off that keyframe, so now it will just be there. Now, there's no point in putting text behind her right here because you can't see it. So I'm going to start it here. So I'm just going to type in yeah, and I'm going to set that up how I'd want it. We're going to increase the size of it and just kind of leave it centered on the screen. And right around here, he starts to say collect. And you know, now it's too big. So I'm going to go back over here, lower that. Right here, he says debt. And then he starts to say tonight. There you go. Now you have text behind it, but it's a little boring, right? It's debt tonight. The moment we can see this text, I'm going to create a keyframe and make it a little bit smaller. We're going to go 3 frames forward, increase the size more than we think we need, go 2 frames forward and lower it again. And for the rest of these, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to go lower it, do 3, raise it more than I think I need, go 2 frames, lower it again to the actual size. And we're just going to do this for each one. Now, if they're all the same size, you can always just Control C, Alt V, and copy the attributes. So I'm going to do the same thing, Control C, click on this one, Alt V, copy attributes. So now it has a little extra pop to it. Now you have a little bit more oomph on the text. Now you don't have to do that. There's a lot of things you could do. You could have this text slide in. You could do pretty much anything. This is just the bare bones. Like, you'll see this in YouTube videos and Let's Plays and stuff when they want to add emphasis. That's kind of what they do. And you can create a preset for that. And if all your text is the same size, it makes it a lot easier to just like copy and paste that effect on all of them. But usually with AMVs, they're only about 3 minutes long, and doing each one manually isn't too bad. It depends on how much text you're doing. But at this point, we now have text, black bars, and a replaced background, which are all a lot of fun. And most computers at this point are going to be really struggling. I am very fortunate. I have a very good PC. So something you can do to kind of help your computer, among other things, I would recommend looking up a tutorial on Davinci to optimize that. You can make your GPU kind of take some of the resources off of your CPU and RAM and stuff like that. But something else you can do if your playback is kind of falling apart, especially when you're layering Magic Mask, it's usually not going to run this well. You can go to render cache and set it to smart end user. I've had this on the whole time because I forgot to mention it. So whenever you make a tweak to anything, let's say I lower that black bar, it's going to make this bar at the top red. And as it renders it, it will turn blue. And once it's blue, that means it's like pre-rendered. So you'll actually be able to watch back what you're doing in real time. If you don't do that, there's a good chance it's going to just run terribly. So make sure that, you know, you go to playback, go to render cache, and you turn that on. Otherwise, your computer's probably not going to handle Magic Mask very well. You can also lower your timeline playback resolution, but I've noticed with that, with some of the effects, it will not only hide some of the effects sometimes, but just make them look terrible, and I like to be able to see exactly what I'm doing and how it's going to look in the final product. So doing that doesn't work, but depending on the specs of your PC, you might have to do that, especially if you're doing a lot of effects and a lot of layering, because my old computer would not have been able to handle this. Another thing you can do, once you're happy with the effect, right? Like I'm happy with all these masks, they're good enough. I can highlight all of them, right click, render in place. Now, you want to render them as DNxHR. The reason you do that is because if you don't, it's going to create a full black background and cut out all the masking that you're doing, basically. So by doing this, it renders the alpha, which just means it renders with a transparent background. I'm going to render at source resolution so I don't lose any quality, and I'm just going to put this on a random drive. So once those render, they are now hard baked into it, and it's going to take way less resources from your computer. However, if you open this in Fusion, your magic mask is gone. You can no longer make tweaks and fix things like this or anything. Now, if you want to undo that because you notice an error, you can just go decompose to original, and when you open it in Fusion, it'll be fine. Now, sometimes when you do that, it's going to break the mask. So again, I recommend drawing on it and forcing it to re-render. There's a lot of having to re-render it with Magic Mask. If you don't render your effects, sometimes you will close your program, you'll open it the next day to work on it, and your mask will just be broken. It is just the unfortunate truth of using this tool that you kind of have to deal with. Okay, so for the interest of this, I'm going to render all of these effects so that there is no Magic Mask and I don't have to worry about anything breaking. Right? So I'm just going to render every effect that I currently have. Now they're all hard-coded. I'm going to select this layer, create a new compound clip, and this is going to act as a background. We're going to offset it. I'm going to open this in Fusion, and I've rendered this and piled them together so that I can use a color corrector. I can lower the contrast, lower the gain, and now I have a silhouette that I can then just offset a little bit, and we have a hard edge on the side. And that's across the whole thing, which looks kind of cool, right? And you can play around with this. You can make it like just kind of a light colored background, different from that. You can make it kind of like a harsh red if you want. Like, whatever you want to do, it's just adding a extra layer behind them. Now, another way you can do that is if you group all these together, and let's drag this down. So now we have a duplicate, and we did what we did before. We add a paper edge now, and you increase the border, you lower the contrast. So let's say we ignore the shadow for now. We change the border color to like a red. There you go. Same effect, but it's behind the bars. And let's try just doing like a solid black. So paper edge is great for just giving an outline to the character, whatever you want. So, you can offset a different version of the character. I've used this a couple of times in like, when I made the similar effect in the body bag video I made, I used this to just add like a bigger version of the character in the background that looks kind of cool. The reason I do certain things is just quite literally because I think they look cool. If it looks good to me, then so be it. I'm gonna try it. Also, you can layer these however you want. So let's say all the text, I want the silhouette that I've created to separate and be between that and her. Now there's a layer behind, but it doesn't cover up the text. You can also go through and change all of these. For the ease of changing an entire group of things, I recommend creating compound clips for text and stuff like that, because I don't want to go through and change the layer for each one and have to copy and paste it. So now by grouping them, I can edit all of them at the same time. So I can like change the text to be different or change the opacity of them without having to worry, or I can just fully gray it out. And if you want to change everything below a certain layer, if I type in clip and pull in an adjustment clip, I can go through and tweak everything that's below it. So let's say I want to change the whole background and the text to be a certain thing. I can change it all to hard mix, like whatever I want. And I could say, apply the blur to this, and it would apply to everything that's below your adjustment clip. So I want to blur all of it at the same time and like really mess it up or something. Now, let's say you want to change the color of the hammer. Why not? You can go through, create a copy, magic mask. We're going to cut the hammer out again, and this time we're just going to cut out the hammer. We're going to leave everything else alone. And boom. It handled most of it. I'm sure there's errors all over the place, and also her horns. There you go. You fully cut out the hammer, and you throw a color corrector on here, and you want the hammer to be blue now. There you go. You now have a blue hammer. Oh, as always, I did the thing. I did a magic mask and I didn't render it both ways. So there we go. It's now been rendered both ways. Now the hammer's blue. Because why not? Again, magic mask is crazy for the amount of things you could do. Really, the only limit is coming up with ideas. So those are just a few fun effects. I use a lot of things like this quite often. It really is just up to your imagination on what you can think of and what you think looks good when you're listening to the music and you're coming up with ideas and trying to think like, you know, what would work here? What really goes with the song? Now, as far as actually making an AMV, the most bare bone basics of that is cut 1 to 2 frames before the beat, right? So if you look at the waveform down here, let's say you were making a cut here. You'd want to make it 1 to 2 frames before the beat. You want the visual to cut before you hear it. That's just, it make brain happy. That's pretty much it. It's just cutting and kind of setting it to the music, right? You always want to cut 1 to 2 frames before the actual beat in the song. So if you look at waveforms, this makes it really easy. You'd want to place a cut like right before here, right before there, and right before there. You may not cut on every beat. Maybe you cut on every half beat. However it ends up looking good to you is really all that matters. And there are some probably more rules to that, but that's the bare basics. Really, your best bet is to just give it a shot, right? If you've been thinking, I'm not good enough to make an AMV, I don't know what I'm doing, just start. My first videos were not good. I have made over 70 AMVs, whether released or not. And my first ones, I don't want to look at them. They sound bad, they look bad. Some people still really like them. I don't, okay? If you like your old stuff, that's fine. But if you don't like your old stuff, that probably means you got better, and that's a good thing. So don't bash yourself because what you made the first try isn't great, right? Practice makes perfect, and you know, nobody's perfect. So just practice, make good. Practice, make better. Give it a shot. Just start making stuff. So throw some effects on there. Is it always going to look good? Absolutely not. But also, not everyone's going to like what you like. What looks good to you probably won't look good to other people. You really never know. The best thing you can do is just do it. Don't bash yourself before you've even tried. That doesn't do anything for you. And if you want to know how to do a certain effect, feel free to ask me, but also just Google Davinci effects. I've learned all of this through trial and error and just looking up tutorials. There are so many good tutorials for Davinci, way better than this. So whether it's specifically for an AMV or not, you can take other people's effects and then just like recreate them, or see a music video you like and just like kind of figure it out. Once you understand the tools of your program, your brain will piece together how to use them in the way that you want. And also, you don't need a ton of effects. You can just make a raw cut of a song to a thing. That's all you got to do, because by that point you're doing something. You're learning how to do timing, you're learning how to do flow. Because another thing you need to think of is, whether it's through animation or film or anything, there are rules that people need to follow, like how somebody is tracking their eye through a shot. So let's look at just the scene that I have here in general. It pulls up, she throws it. Our eyes are watching the hammer as his hand comes off the screen from the right, and then he pulls it, right? And as that happens, let's see where he is, right? Our eyes are on the left half of the screen and at maybe in between the hammer and his face. But more than likely, your eyes are going to be on his face. So what does this show do in the next frame? It has him not directly centered, but off to the left a bit where you were looking. He walks towards the screen, and where's it going to cut again? He's in the dead center of the screen, roughly, and boom. We look between these characters, and we can follow either one. Like, let's say you look at Power first, and then you look over at him. Either way, what's going to get drawn again is you see him swing the hammer, so your eye gets drawn. It flows over to his face as he centers on the screen. He's walking from right to left. And then where does it cut to? Him going from right to left. So your eye's going to follow from the right over to the left as he swings. And we kind of flow around. And again, he's now on the left side of the screen. He's on the right side of the screen. Our eyes kind of follow this motion as you see his hand come up. We see the knife, and then look where it goes. You're looking at the knife. Right side of the screen is now Denji's back, because that's already where you were looking. So they're using these tricks too, and using them in your music video is going to be very important as well, because eye fatigue is a thing. So just kind of consider where the viewer was looking. So don't make a cut where you're looking at a character on the right side and then it shifts over to the left like the next cut. If that happens, just flip one of the scenes so that now it goes from the left and you're looking at the left again, and then it flows over to the right. However you want to do it, there are little things to consider, but the most important thing is just making it look good. And you won't know what looks good if you just never try. So that's really it. This was supposed to be a short recording, and I'm already almost an hour in because I'm just yapping. So we're going to call it there. You know, I got about 10 layers here, all for one scene, and you don't need all of these at once. You really don't even need all of these at all. You could just have this sync up with the music and that's it. But hopefully you learned something, and just go out there, make something cool.